Hello friends, welcome back to another Magic Monday. Today we're looking at a deck called Eternal Winter, with Winter the Misanthropic Guide. Red, green, black, one generic for a 3/4 legendary human warlock with Ward 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws 2 cards. And as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, each opponent's maximum hand size is equal to 7 minus the number of those card types. Because it's Delirium, we want stuff in our graveyard. Also, he looks so much like Dream from Sandman, and it says Delirium on the card, and it's such a Sandman-y kind of thing. Regardless, under the hood, 3.3 average mana cost, very heavy black and green, just a tiny splash of red. 40 lands, 14 creatures, 10 instants, 8 sorceries, 11 artifacts, 12 enchantments, 3 planeswalkers, and a battle. So we got mana rocks, which we're going to skip over. We got some removal like cut down, whatever. One with nothing I put in here. It's a stupid card, but in a pinch, discarding your hand for 1 mana and triggering the Delirium can be kind of funny, more than anything. Some control here with Thoughtseize. Tiny Bones, one of our creatures. He's got Death Touch. He's easy to get into the graveyard. We can also cast stuff from our graveyard. Death Bonnet Sprout lets us mill a card at the beginning of every upkeep, which helps us fill up our graveyard for winter. Grist doesn't really need to be here, but there is some graveyard manipulation, so we threw him in. Corpse Churn, now we're talking. Mill 3 cards, then return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. Well, there's only 14 creatures, so chances are we're not going to mill one. We're not going to get a creature in these 3, so we're just filling our graveyard. Oversold Cemetery could probably go, but it just sort of fit the theme. If you have 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Can be useful. It's not critical. If you have other ideas of what you want to put in the deck, go for it. Waste Not. Now we're talking. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 zombie. Whenever an opponent discards a land, add 2 black. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land, draw a card. Considering our goal here is to make our opponent's hand as small as possible by forcing them to discard a bunch of stuff, this is very nice. Grapple with the Past lets us mill stuff just like that other one. Got some protection here. Tapping at the window, we get to look at the top 3 cards, reveal a creature card, and then put the rest into our graveyard. Assassin's Trophy for some removal. Deadly Brew. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. If you sacrificed a permanent this way, return another permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Love it. Lets us mill 3 cards. Altar of Dementia. We have creatures out, but we don't have any in the graveyard because there's only 14 in the deck. Sack 1. We can even make ourselves mill the cards. Mana Rock, Mana Rock. Demonic Embrace. It's an enchantment that will stay there or let us pull it back. Lily is one of our planeswalkers because for -2, mill 2 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Helps us mill. Chaos Warp, just because I never use it, I thought I'd put it in here. And it can be useful in a lot of different scenarios. It's very much a risk, though. Maddening Hex. Enchantment player. Whenever enchanted player casts a non-creature spell, roll a d6. Maddening Hex deals damage to that player equal to the result. And then attach Maddening Hex to another one of your opponents at random. Well, we only have one opponent, so it's not a big deal. It's always going to be on the same person, and if we're playing against like a Narset Prowess deck, this is a game ender, honestly. Druidic Ritual lets us mill. Crawling Infestation lets us mill. We got some removal here. Now we can play lands from our graveyard. We have a couple of cards that let us do that. 6. Whenever 6 attacks, mill 3 cards. Put a land from among them into your hand during your turn. Non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have Retrace. So we can discard a land and pay its mana cost to play a non-land permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target land card from your graveyard to your battlefield tapped. Ren, -2, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. That's pretty much why Ren is here. Removal, Chromatic Lantern for Mana Rock. Crucible of Worlds lets us play lands from our graveyard. This big, scary insect monster is a 4/4. We can conjure duplicate creatures into our graveyard, and then if we have 8, with this Descend 8, exile a permanent card from your graveyard. You may play it. Cool. Grave Pact, because we don't have a lot of creatures, but we have ways of having them die multiple times. Grave Pact is nice. Ley Line of the Void, screw your opponent real bad by making everything into exile. Sheldred, great combo here because at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws 2 cards per winter. So we're gaining 4 life and our opponent is losing 4 life at the beginning of each of our upkeeps. Conduit of Worlds lets us play lands from our graveyard and potentially cast a non-land permanent. Scape Shift lets us get lands into our graveyard. World Shaper lets us mill and then return graveyard lands. This thing lets us sack a creature, discard a card, and then return target card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter. Mill 2 cards and return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. When I have a Kaga, Shadow Archdruid attacks, it gains Death Touch, mill 2 cards. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent from among cards in your graveyard that were put there this turn. So this helps us get through our deck, fill up our graveyard, and potentially pull stuff out that we want. Each player sacks a creature. Soul of Windgraze. Whenever it enters or attacks, put a land card from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. Pay green, discard a land card, red, discard a land card, or black, discard a land card, and it has different effects. So it helps us get lands into the graveyard. 1 ring for some draw power. Season of Loss for some flexibility here, including making our opponent sack a bunch of creatures. This is broken. Turgid with Winter is broken. Invasion of Chandalar lets us return stuff from our graveyard to our hand, and then if we kill it to play the battle as an enchantment, we can put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield at the beginning of each upkeep. That's pretty cool. Not much left here. Burning Rune Demon lets us search for 2 cards, so we really need to get an enchantment into our graveyard. We search for 2 enchantments. Or if we just really want to play something cool, like Turgid, we search for Turgid and Cruel Reality, which we'll get to in a second. Professor Onyx, our final Planeswalker, mostly for the +1, you lose 1 life. Put 1 of the top 3 cards into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, but also some good control with the -3. Each opponent sacks a creature with the greatest power. Shadow of the Enemy. I almost said Erdtree. Shadow of the Enemy lets us exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard and then cast them. Can make some treasure tokens. I don't know why. It's just fun, and it's also an artifact, so if we get it into the graveyard, it counts as an artifact. Chimil, the Inner Sun. Discover 5. Nothing beats a free Turgid. Cruel Reality, 7 mana, Aura Curse. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, they sack a creature or planeswalker. If they can't, they lose 5 life. So if we get Cruel Reality, we get Turgid, and we have Winter out, we're going to win, basically. Chromatic Ori for some flex and some mana. I put this room in. I don't know. It could be something else, but it's kind of neat. And the Meat Hook Massacre for a board wipe, and that's about it. Just a board wipe. Bunch of lands. That's the deck. We put in Dust Bowl, so we can also sack a land here to destroy non-basic lands. It's not even sack Dust Bowl, it's sack a land. So that can be really helpful to also feed our graveyard if we need to get a land in there. So friends, that's the deck. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, please consider leaving a like or a comment or even a subscription to our little channel, because if you're watching this and you're not a part of my community by subscribing, I'll be sad boy, and you don't want me to be sad boy. So join the team. Just click subscribe. I got stuff every single day. There's going to be something for you. As always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. We'll see you in the next video.